Hello students, today we will discuss types and diagnostic criteria of diabetes mellitus, which is one of the important parts of MSc Semester 4 Food Science and Nutrition syllabus of Rashtrasanta Tukadoji Maharaj Nagpur University Nagpur in the subject Clinical and Therapeutic Nutrition. Diabetes mellitus is a group of diseases characterized by high blood glucose level resulting from defects in insulin secretion, insulin action, or both. Insulin is a hormone produced by beta cells of islets of Langerhans of pancreas, and it acts through the insulin receptors on the cell surface. It is necessary for use and storage of body fuels like carbohydrate, protein, and fat. Decreased insulin response, which is known as insulin resistance, and it is due to a reduction in the number of insulin receptors on the cell surface. As I spoke earlier, insulin helps in deposition of three energy giving nutrients, that is carbohydrate, protein, and fat, into the body cells. Now let us see the role of insulin in these three macronutrients. As far as carbohydrate is concerned, insulin allows the entry of glucose in the cells and stimulates cellular enzymes to deposit glycogen, and it also helps in glucose utilization. For protein formation from amino acids in the cells, insulin is necessary. It inhibits the release of amino acids from the cells, and hence deficiency of insulin results in protein breakdown, which in turn leads to wasting of the muscles. We all know that fatty acids are stored in the fat cells as triglycerides. They are released from the cells for energy requirement and used by the liver and metabolized into ketone bodies. These ketone bodies are utilized for energy by the body tissues, and insulin inhibits release of fatty acids from fat cells, and hence it decreases ketone bodies production by the liver. Now let us see types of diabetes mellitus. As shown in this slide, there are basically four types of diabetes mellitus. The first one is type 1, which is also known as insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. They require exogenous insulin. Then there is type 2 diabetes mellitus, and it is also known as non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus, and these cases they are not dependent upon exogenous insulin. Then there is gestational diabetes mellitus and malnutrition related diabetes mellitus. Coming to type 1 diabetes, which is also known as juvenile diabetes, if it is detected before the age of 18 years, which affect children or adolescents. And if it is detected after the age of 18 years, then obviously it is IDDM. There is little or no production of insulin, and affected people, they require exogenous insulin in the form of insulin injections to prevent ketoacidosis, complications, and death. Affected persons are usually lean and thin, which means they are not obese. And type 1 diabetes is characterized by destruction of beta cells, which leads to absolute insulin deficiency, that is total insulin deficiency. The most cases of insulin dependent diabetes mellitus are diagnosed before the age of 18 years, with peak incidence at the age of 10 to 14 years. And to manage such young insulin dependent diabetes cases, a careful balance has to be maintained between diet for adequate growth, weight regulation, exercise, and insulin dosage. This slide shows classes of IDDM. The first one is immune mediated IDDM, and second one is idiopathic. There is no known etiology for idiopathic IDDM, whereas immune mediated IDDM results from a cell mediated autoimmune destruction of beta cells of pancreas. Now coming to non-insulin dependent diabetes, that is type 2 diabetes, which is also known as adult onset or maturity onset diabetes, and the onset is at adult age. Affected persons are usually overweight or obese, and they are older than the age of 30 years at the time of diagnosis. The insulin production among these cases may be either normal or even high, and they show high level of circulating insulin. but that insulin is not as effective as normal insulin, and these cases may have either defective insulin binding to the cells or decreased insulin receptors on the cell surfaces. They are not dependent on exogenous insulin, that means they do not require insulin injections, but they require oral hypoglycemic drugs. Regular exercise, good diet, weight reduction, and oral anti-diabetic drugs are enough to control high blood glucose level among NIDDM cases. The risk factors for type 2 diabetes include older age, obesity, family history of diabetes, a prior history of gestational diabetes among women, physical inactivity, stress, etc. In contrast to IDDM, NIDDM is characterized by insulin resistance and relative insulin deficiency rather than absolute insulin deficiency. Insulin resistance is predominant with people having type 2 diabetes, and it is due to decreased tissue sensitivity or responsiveness to insulin, and as a result hyperglycemia occurs. Insulin resistance may occur due to abnormal beta cells secretory products, that is either abnormal insulin molecule or incomplete conversion of proinsulin to insulin, increased levels of circulating hormones like cortisol, glucagon, ACTH, etc., and decreased number of insulin receptors on the cell membrane. Type 2 diabetics are not prone to develop ketoacidosis. The third class of diabetes mellitus is gestational diabetes mellitus. It develops during pregnancy and disappears when pregnancy is over. Women with known diabetes before pregnancy are not classified as having GDM. GDM is usually diagnosed in the second or third trimester of pregnancy, and during this period, insulin antagonist hormone levels rise, especially the ovarian and placental hormones, and insulin resistance occurs because of reduced tissue sensitivity or responsiveness to insulin. Women who had GDM previously have danger of having type 2 diabetes in later life. Diabetes during pregnancy increases risk for both mother as well as her fetus. Proper MNT, that is medical nutrition therapy, is required to manage gestational diabetic cases. Shown in this slide, there is one more class of diabetes mellitus, that is malnutrition related diabetes mellitus, MRDM, which is mainly seen in some tropical countries where there is high incidence of malnutrition, and MRDM occurs in young people in the age group of 15 to 30 years. And people with MRDM are very lean and undernourished, as pancreas fails to produce adequate insulin, and hence MRDM cases they require exogenous insulin, that is insulin injections, to control high blood glucose level, but they do not develop ketoacidosis easily. There are two main classes of MRDM. One is FCPDM and second one is PDDM. FCPDM is fibrocalculous pancreatic diabetes mellitus. There is fibrosis and calcification of pancreas as a result of frequent infections like pancreatitis, and abdominal pain is common in these cases. Then there is protein deficient diabetes mellitus. It occurs due to deficiency of protein, and there is lack of amino acids which are required for formation of insulin. Now coming to diagnostic and screening criteria for diabetes mellitus. Diabetes is suspected when sugar is present in blood and urine, and post-meal sugar level is higher than normal. The diagnosis of diabetes is confirmed by conducting an oral GTT, that is glucose tolerance test. There are certain conditions for oral GTT. There should be 12 hours overnight fasting, and 75 grams of glucose for adults and 1.75 grams of glucose per kg actual body weight for children is orally given. And before the glucose load and after 2 hours of it, blood samples are collected and glucose levels are estimated. In normal persons without diabetes or in impaired glucose tolerance, the fasting blood glucose level varies between 80 to 110 mg per dl. The blood glucose level rises after the glucose load and comes down to the basal level within 2 hours. This table shows diagnostic criteria based on blood glucose levels. For normal non-diabetic cases, fasting blood glucose level is between 80 to 110 mg per dl, and after 2 hours of glucose load, it should be less than 140. And diabetes is detected if the blood glucose level is either equal to or greater than 120 for fasting and equal to or greater than 180 mg per dl after 2 hours of glucose load. The glucose is excreted in the urine when blood glucose level is increased beyond 180 mg per dl, and the presence of abnormal amount of glucose in the urine must be considered as evidence of diabetes, that is uncontrolled diabetes. Urinary glucose can be detected using commercially available diagnostic strips easily available in the market, and for this urine must be voided just before the meal, and the foods must be taken with usual helpings of nutrients, and the test may be repeated 2 to 3 hours after the meal, and the interpretation of urine test is studied based on the color on the strip. For GDM cases, diagnostic criteria is little different. Every pregnant woman with impaired glucose tolerance must be treated as if she is diabetic. Screening for diabetes for pregnant lady is done with 50 grams of glucose load without fasting, and if blood glucose level is equal to or greater than 140 mg per dl after 1 hour of testing, further diagnosis is required. The criteria for diagnosis of GDM is based on 100 grams of oral glucose load, and after this 100 grams of oral glucose load, GDM is diagnosed if two blood glucose values equal or exceed 105 mg per dl for fasting, 190 mg per dl after 1 hour, 165 mg per dl after 2 hours, and 145 mg per dl after 3 hours. One of the most important diagnostic criteria for diabetes is glycosylated hemoglobin. As the concentration of glucose in the blood increases, more of it gets attached to hemoglobin, and the combined molecule is chemically estimated as glycosylated hemoglobin. There are several glycosylated hemoglobin in which glucose is linked with hemoglobin, but HbA1a is the most common. It forms gradually and remains for the lifespan of RBCs, that is for 120 days. If HbA1a is greater than 8%, then the person is diabetic. For non-diabetic people, the range is 4 to 7%.